Welcome, everybody, to Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle Erasmus, the author of Writing That Gets Noticed, Find Your Voice, Become a Better Storyteller, Get Published, which was named by Poets and Writers a best book for writers. Every week, I speak with novelists, with authors, with writers of every niche to talk about their tips, their tricks, their strategies, and how the sauce is made, including creative advice. I'll talk about essays and articles and share my own experience from 3 decades of publishing. So join me every week and grow your business and build your craft with Freelance Writing Direct. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. And follow along on Substack, where I share special clips for subscribers only at estelleserasmus.substack.com. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Freelance Writing Direct. I'm your host, Estelle Erasmus, the author of Writing That Gets Noticed, named the best book for writers from Poets and Writers. And today I want to talk to you about repurposing your work. If you've been writing for a long time, if you've been journaling, if you've been blogging, if you've been doing a Substack, if you have little pieces that you've written throughout your life, throughout your career, these are pieces that you can repurpose into other forms. Think about it. You have so much work out there, so much material. I know that I struggle because I have so much written pieces from all the years that I've been in publishing, which is 30 years. And so I can take some of these pieces and repurpose them into micro memoir, flash fiction. I used an older piece that I had written for the New York Times for my TEDx talk. And I used another piece that I had written about my hearing loss for my TEDx talk. So there are so many ways that you can take this material. So I recommend right now, go into your notes app or your drafts or wherever you keep your material and see what you can pull out. And maybe there's something that you can do as a micro memoir, which is really just a beginning, middle, and end narrative arc of something that happened in your life. And so you can take something that you wrote, maybe you wrote a blog post back in the day about parenting. You can take that and put it into a micro memoir and just make sure that you're using expressive language and maybe slang or texting, talking about texting, different things that are going to get the reader's attention because you're working with very little valuable word space. So you have like 100 words, some micro memoir is like 200, 250, but it's really sparse word space. So you want to make the most value you can out of that. Other things is flash fiction. So maybe you wrote a story. I have a story that I wrote, and I'm not even kidding, when I was in high school. And I have been wanting to submit it for flash fiction for the longest time. Now, of course, I'm going to look it over. I'm going to kind of zhuzh it up and make it look better and look at it from the point of view of where I am as a writer today. But I'm still planning to do something with it. So many of us have written for websites that are now defunct. What does that mean? It means that you have pieces out there that you own the rights to, that you never sold the rights to, and that you can actually do something with. So maybe you can take these pieces of writing and figure out if you're going to repurpose them into another essay, or if you have a memoir in progress, are you going to use that for your memoir? Are you going to take pieces of it and maybe make it into a service piece? In my book, Chapter 4, I talk about service journalism in a chapter called At Your Reader's Service, which is how to make articles that are helpful to the reader, that are of service. And so if you're talking about maybe something about friendship and you're talking about your own friendship, you can repurpose it into finding tips about friends and maybe talk to a therapist or look at a book that just recently came out. And in my book, I give a lot of advice on how to do that. In the section on data, you can actually go to publishers' websites and see what new releases are coming out. And very often they'll have an interview with the writer that you can then use. I spoke to my NYU journalism class, and I said something which surprised them, which is that press releases work as a primary source because it's straight from the actual expert or the actual company or organization that you want to cite. So that's why going to the website can be so effective. And I talk about repurposing rejected pitches and essays in my section in the book called Rejection Projection. So on page 267, I'm going to read you from the book. When my students get rejected, I remind them the perfect home for their piece is out there. They just have to keep trying. I once submitted a story I loved to over 30 publications before I got a yes. I don't do that these days because I don't have the time, but I know how to be persistent and teach my students how to keep going with it. If you learn how to believe in your work, others will believe in it too. And that doesn't mean posting on social media 10 times a day about how hard it is, which I've seen a lot of people do that. It means doing the work. So I like to write detailed pitches and boil them down to a shorter version. And I keep the longer version and save the content to use in other pieces. And I call it long pitch. That's the topic of it in my files. And once in a while, I even review my rejected pitches to see if there's material in them that I can repurpose and match with a trending topic. Maybe do a Google alert for a topic that you're interested in. Or you can ask AI about a topic that you're interested in and just always make sure to verify. Here's an example of repurposing your work from my book. An essay on being adopted could become a reported piece on the newest trends in adoption. A rejected essay on your problems with migraines could become a reported piece on the newest therapy for migraine sufferers. If a piece has been rejected by national publications, you can also pitch local and regional publications, which are often looking for fresh material and don't have as many writers to rely on as national publications do. They usually pay less, but if you've already done the reporting, it will take less of your time. Most of them also purchase reprints, so you may find a new market for the work you've already published. And I have a podcast episode with Cheryl McGuire on reprints, and I'll link that in the show notes. So there are so many ways that you can repurpose your work. So don't be afraid to do it. Don't be afraid to delve into, even if you've written something that never saw the light of day, like a book or a nonfiction book, you can take the material and just repurpose it into any genre. Write a poem, write a micro memoir, write a short piece, do a profile on somebody that you were thinking of using as an expert. Make sure that you're using the latest up-to-date information. You may need to check it if you're going to use an expert because, verify that that's still what the expert's saying, especially if it was something from years ago, or find a more current expert. And there are sources like ProfNet that will help you do that. There's also SOS, which I have an interview with in Freelance Writing Direct, and I'll link that as well. So other things you can do is you can peek yourself to write by maybe taking a photo, and maybe that'll spark you because it's something that you maybe were planning to use in some way. And so it'll just get you jump started. So you're not exactly repurposing writing there, but you're repurposing the memory from a photo that can also be very, very effective. So, I always believe in looking at what life gives you, making lemonade out of it. So a lot of people say to me, "Oh, Estelle, I'm so upset this site closed." First of all, make sure that you saved your work in PDF form. That is so important to do. And secondly, if you save it, you can repurpose it. You can sell it as a reprint. You can redo it completely, but keep the main psychological or philosophical thread going. And with Substack, and some people are still on Medium, there's absolutely ways to do it there as well. I would take your best work and try and get that published. I would take work that you want to use to build your Substack or your Medium or your following and give different pieces of advice and try to publish that to build your platform on a Substack or Medium. And I would try to look at all the different literary publications out there because they are having a moment. And I have an episode on how to write for small presses and literary pubs, which I'll also link in the show notes. And so you can find a ton of them on Duotrope. And there's other newer ones that you can look into also that we talk about in the episode on literary publications. And of course, Submittable also has them. And there are many places that you can find them in, including poets and writers. And I really recommend that you just look at your body of work. And if you're like me, you could go to your Microsoft Word and just do a search and go far back. Go to like 2000s, go to 2010, go to the earlier versions of what you have and see what you can do with them. And you'll start feeling that even if you have some writer's block, and I talk about writer's block and how to address it in my latest Substack called When Writers Are the Ones Blocking the Page, 6 Ways to Move Forward. And I also give an offer where I'll review your query to a publisher, or I'll review your pitch for an article or an essay. So you can find me at estelleserasmus.substack.com. And I really hope to hear from some of you. I love learning what you're learning from what I'm talking about. And I just want to also share that it's my 1-year anniversary for my audiobook for Writing That Gets Noticed. And that was published by the fantastic firm Dreamscape Media, who reached out to my publisher last year, a full year after the print book came out, to bring it to audio. And the talented voiceover artist Jen Lee narrated the book. And I was honored to read the intro paragraph, which you can even hear my voice in the sample they offer, which I'll link to. And I even wrote a post for Substack about how it all came to be. I wanted to actually read the whole thing, and then it took so much time. And I'm media trained, I'm voice trained, I'm a singer, I'm a speaker, but it took so many hours. And I realized that you never know when your bad luck's your good luck, because the audio producer said, "You sound great, but we're going to get a professional to do the book, but we'd love to have you read the intro." And that's what I did. And it was a few hours of taping and done, and I'm thrilled with it. Dreamscape Media recently partnered with Baby Einstein, expanding their creative reach even further. It's actually $1 billion company now. I'm so honored to be in the company of all the wonderful authors that they've produced audiobooks for. So I just want to acknowledge, I think we need to acknowledge our wins, because I went through quite a phase with that. Nobody wanted my audiobook for a year after publication. And I just thought, okay, the rights reverted back to me. My publisher kindly gave it back to me. And then lo and behold, so you just never know what's going to happen. And I'm so happy that it did. I want to just end with something I said in my Substack. I gave the 6 common ways writers hold themselves back and what to do instead. And one of them I said was the idea spinner and spinner and spinner. That was my subhead. And I said, you have more ideas than you can count, but they swirl around in your head instead of landing on paper. Before you write a word, you're already imagining what might go wrong, why it's holding you back. Nothing improves until it exists in draft form. Ideas need oxygen, and oxygen comes from getting them out of your head and onto the page. If you second guess your ideas before you even open the document, your writing will never get off the ground. And I had an Estelle's edge. I said, pick one idea, just one, and commit to it for a week. Do a no stopping, write for 15 minutes each day. Don't edit, don't erase, just let it flow. End your session mid-thought so you have a built-in entry point next time. Or start by writing the sentence you're most afraid to say. That's the beginning of finding your real voice, not the one you think you should have. And so not only find your voice, find your material and repurpose it into anything that you can imagine. Use your creativity, and I can't wait to hear what you're writing. Till next time, bye-bye. Follow me at EstelleSErasmus.com on my website and on social media, which is Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, at Estelle S. Erasmus. And we're now on YouTube for Freelance Writing Direct. Follow along, and soon everyone will be reading what you're writing.